In this session, we'll be working with a term called tuples, right? So suppose you want to create a list and the items should not change, then tuples will allow you to do that. So Python refers such values that cannot be changed as immutable. So an immutable list is called a tuple. So we'll just compare the list and tuple, how actually it works. If I say that I would create a list, suppose I take a variable 1, and for the list you have to use the square brackets. So this is the empty list I'm creating. So for the type var1, you find it is an empty list, right? Suppose I create the variable 1 and some of the list. I'll just combine the list. I'll put an integer number and I will put a text, say rows, right? Then I put in floating point number, say 53.4. So within the list, I have created a integer value, a text and a floating point number. Then I require this has to be printed. Since this is a list, shift enter, you find that you have 3 elements within a list. Similar way, you can use the tuples to be created, but that cannot. Here in this list, you can add, modify and delete the elements within the list, but in the tuple you cannot able to delete the elements or you cannot able to modify it because it's a permanent list that you're going to create, right? So that's the term that we call as immutable. So in this case, I'll be creating the tuple. For the tuple, you require the parenthesis to be created, right? So this is an empty parenthesis. So in this case, you have, suppose I type var2, you have the empty list created. Shift enter, you find that the list is empty, right? Suppose I take var2 equal to, within the parenthesis, you have to create the tuple. So just take the same value 23 as an integer value, then I type a string within a single quotes, then floating point value 53.4, right? Then I type var2, shift enter. So in this case, you find that here it is a list which has been in the square bracket, and this is a tuple which is in the parenthesis. Let us do the deletion of the list elements in the list. Suppose I want to delete the variable 1 which is the list. Within that I require the element number 1, right? So in the element, how you will be counting it, 0, 1 and 2. So I require the first element rows has to be deleted from the list. So if I type 1, the element number 1, and we'll be checking the variable 1 which is a list, shift enter. So you find that the element within the list has been deleted, right? In the variable 2, we have stored the tuples with the tuples. So suppose I delete the variable 2 and the same element 1. So in this case, I'm going to delete this one, rows within the parenthesis, the first element 0, 1 and 2. We'll see whether it will be working or not. So in this case, I will type var2 and shift enter. It throws out an error, right? It throws out an error and says that the tuple object does not support item deletion. It means that the list that you create within a parenthesis is a tuple and it is immutable, right? So tuple looks same like a list. So in this case, you cannot able to delete the items in a tuple.